So in the previous video, we saw how to use the PHP header command in order to redirect the browser. And there's one important point about using header, which I haven't really talked about much yet. And that's if you look at this page, basically there's two parts to the response. There's the header, which we have talked about. And then there's a single blank line, which isn't shown here. And then there's the response body. And the thing about header is it's altering that header that gets sent. So things like the location, they have to be part of the HTTP header. And this can lead to some unusual and difficult situations. So I'm going to go ahead and move this line up here. And then I'm going to hit reload. Actually, I'm not going to reload, but I'm going to go to HTTP:. And it still worked. It still forwarded it. But let's go ahead and make this piece of text a little bigger. So I'm going to go to Google and search for lorem. And here's a lorem ipsum generator. And I'm just going to copy this text here. So just a big blob of text. And I'm going to put that in a here.doc variable. Like so. And then I'm going to echo that lorem text. And now I'm going to go back here and go to HTTP. And I see my lorem text, but you'll notice I'm not in a secure connection anymore. And if I look at the secure page that just got loaded, if I look at the response headers, you'll see there's no location there. And if you look at the response text, you'll see there's actually a PHP error in this middle. So debug notice, let's scroll down and look at it. Undefined index HTTPS and cannot modify header information, headers already sent by, output started, and so on. So basically what this error is saying is that it tried to send this relocate header. Inside of my utilities, it tried to actually set this relocate header, but it already sent the header. And the reason it sent the header already is because when you start doing output, some of that gets buffered, but then when you hit the maximum buffer size, it starts flushing the output to the stream. It sends the stuff in blocks. And if you hit the limit for the first block, it starts actually sending the body. So it will flush the header part because it needs to go header, new line, body. And it will write the header, write a new line, write the first block of output. Then you get to this thing which tries to modify the header, but the header's already been sent. And so you get an error. If you're doing this, here it's starting to write the body, but this part of the body just gets put in a buffer until more body text comes in. Then I hit this line. I haven't sent the header yet, so this thing gets added to the header. The location redirect gets added to the header. Then when I get to the end of the page, anything that's in the output buffer that hasn't been sent yet gets sent. And so the page actually works. But if I start adding more stuff, it's going to stop working, and I'm not necessarily going to know why. So there's two ways of fixing this problem. The good way, whenever you can, is to always put any lines that modify the header using the header command before you start outputting any text that goes to the page, that goes in the body of the response. So that's the generally approved and optimal thing to do. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes the logic is complicated, and sometimes you have to start writing some output before you detect an error condition or something like that, and you really want to redirect the browser after you've actually started writing the body. When you run into that situation, there's a way of dealing with it. I'm going to get my lorem ipsum text back. And then I'm going to echo lorem. And reload. So I'm still getting that error. So here's how I'm going to fix it. Before I do any output, I'm going to use OB_start. So what OB_start does is it basically forces all output to be buffered until I tell it to start outputting the body. So without OB_start, it's just going to accumulate a little bit in a buffer and flush it, a little bit in a buffer and flush it, and so on. And I can't really control when the first buffer gets sent. But with OB_start, everything is going to be put into a buffer until I do something special. And the special thing I'm going to do is at the end, I'm going to call OB and flush, like so. And OB and flush will take everything that's been buffered and then flush that to output. So this means basically that the require secure, the thing that changes the header, can happen anywhere in here before OB and flush. So if I hit reload, now it worked correctly. See, it forwarded to HTTPS. Try that again. See, it gets forwarded. So this works, but it's generally best to avoid using it if possible. So only use output buffering if you actually need to use output buffering for some reason. And there's a couple of variations. Instead of using OBN flush, I can actually fetch the contents of the buffer as a string. I can pre-process it before writing it and do other things to it. So there are some situations where output buffering is useful. But generally, if you can reorder the sequence so that you modify the headers before you start sending the output, that's going to be preferable.